So excited.
Woo! Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Existential Side Quest. I am Jenna,
I'm Kimber.
and today we are going to be talking about Neptune in love, it's not really a binary, but intimacy versus intensity versus infatuation, kind of that like diluted thinking that can come in, or romanticizing either connections or past loves, past relationships, the one who got away type thinking.
Yeah,
This is a juicy topic.
I'm very excited. And like we'll kind of tie in Pisces and like the 12th house as well. But yeah. Where do you want to start? So Jen and I were actually just thinking this is gonna be an interesting episode because the vagueness of Neptune, and we've come in with so many different like porous ideas and topics that we could go with.
Yeah, and they all kind of like blend together while also pulling apart from each other and being unique. But that is kind of Neptune and Pisces vibes, like the one consciousness of everything and how it all kind of is intermingled while also having its own identity. So
yeah,
today's episode is going to feel that way. One thing I thought was really interesting in reflecting and preparing for this episode is the idea that Neptune is the higher octave of Venus.
Yeah.
Neptune isn't really falling in love with the specific person, but more about the feeling or the idea that comes with that, or the states of feeling that can be brought upon oneself through that relationship.
Yes, because like Neptune is all about like just it's romanticizing. It's like the idealization of a person, of love projection, for better or worse, right? I really feel like that's a very common in today's society too. Like I was thinking, especially around like during COVID when you were meeting people but you couldn't be in person, and it's like so we spend a lot of time like. A lot of times if you're on dating apps, you spend a lot of time like talking and building this chemistry or bond before you actually meet in person. And sometimes when you meet in person, you're like, I thought I was about to meet the love of my life. And this is a completely different feeling. But I had it all built up in my head, you know?
Yeah. And it's like, so did you build that up in your head because you truly were excited to meet that other person and take the next steps towards romantic bonding and intimacy and long-term union? Or, not trying to call anyone out, is it more about really wanting the feeling of longing, yearning for someone, the ache of like, oh, this could be my true love? And if that's really the feeling you want, then are you always going to be disappointed, no matter who it is at the other end of,
Yeah. I mean, that's so funny you say yearning, because that makes me think about like why I think about 90s R&B, like just there's a desire to yearn in our culture, right? And it's just like there's something, you get lost in this daydream. It's all like I don't know what, like there's all this potential for how it could turn out, that I think that, and we can get into that later, but why sometimes the relationships we are most attached to are the ones that never happened or ended sooner than we would have liked because we didn't actually get to find out. And so there is still that yearning. But I also think that there's the other side of Neptune with those of just maybe I am falling for what this person is saying, but is this who this person is? Or it's like, where are we also in Neptunian love? It's not just like we're projecting onto this person, but we might also be trying to edit or put the best filter on ourselves, filter on our personality, not just like physical things as well.
It sort of reminds me of, did you ever watch The Jetsons as a kid?
Yes. I'm like,
sorry, this is really random. They had those like video calls, and like this was back before video calling was even a thing. And you'd see like George Jetson's wife like with like a fake mask on, and then the other person, and one lady's once fell off, and it was like her hair wasn't curled. She was like, ah. So it's like the idea of like showing up as this best version of yourself, even though, first of all, no one can be their best self 100% of the time. It takes, putting your hair in curlers in order to look whatever that cartoon lady was trying to look like. But the whole image that we're projecting is that like, no, this is me 100% of the time. But it's like you're making a promise you actually can't keep once you're in person.
Right. I like what Camille is saying is like, I think I see people's highest self, the core of their spirit, and that she's learned, but talking about like idealizing for the worst. And it makes me think about the Neptune does connect to like compassion, forgiveness. I was going to say something else too, but I don't remember. Whatever. But it's like but that there's like a downside to that too, where we're seeing like the best version of this person, and is that true or not?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. And if we're so caught up in also showing them only the best version of ourselves, are we almost not looking out for the fact that we're both showing up in this inauthentic way?
Yes. And it's like, it's almost too, if you're trying to be who they want and they're trying to be who you want, so then you're almost like weird mirroring each other. So it kind of cuts, like when you're really focused on being chosen or like being the object of their desire, that also like cuts your own intuition off.
Yes,
Like,
definitely.
is this actually a genuine connection?
And it's like it's almost like when you show up in that way and you're hyper bonding and only showing the best parts of yourself, you're skipping kind of like the work of the relationship, and you're striving for that, like Neptune's goal of dissolving anything between us. And it's like, okay, oh, well, we're so perfect for each other. We're both showing up as the perfect parts of ourselves. So it's a lot easier to see yourself with a person when you only see the happy parts or the pleasant parts of their personality. So jumping right into like, well, let's dissolve the boundaries between each other and just become one. Let's like merge together. And then whether that merging happens through the distance of the relationship, and it can get really messy, but say it's a long distance thing for over a year. And then when you finally meet, it's like you feel like you merged, but it wasn't authentically who you really were. So then there's a lot of this like backing up. Wait a second. Wait, we created this huge bond, but it wasn't actually built on anything real.
There's this show called Never Ever Met, like where they'll be in a relationship for 10 years. It's messy, but it's like typically there's like one person who is Neptunian, like truly surrendered to this thing, and another person who was not fully presenting the truth and reality. But there's still, because it's like, it's almost like being in that Neptunian bubble and that merging happening when you haven't met, or there's no, like, it's because Neptune's ungrounding. And it's like, if I'm living in this ungrounded bubble for so long with like, there's no grounding, that's also, it's kind of I don't want to go to the dark side right now, but like just a manipulator's dream, right? Like just, oh, then you'll be super disoriented when I like turn this love bubble off. And because we don't have any grounding anyway, we've just been in this bubble and we're already merged. And like and that's where, like, Neptune is the dissolution of boundaries, and like there's a positive expression of that and a lower expression of that, but it's just we need some sort of boundary and like maintaining yourself but inside the relationship.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And the idea of maintaining those boundaries, it can feel like, oh, well, we're not taking anything too fast because we're not even living together. We've never even met in person. However, I still view it as a serious relationship. And it's like, well, you're spending all this time, Saturnian time, long distance, long-term relationship, bonding with someone. However, you're giving Neptune so much free reign to both positively and negatively influence the dynamics of the relationship, because it's almost like there's the day-to-day friction. I can't stop thinking about the Virgo Pisces axis, but that the day-to-day friction that's kind of necessary in relationships in order to make those kind of Virgoan, a little bit better type corrections, those aren't existing. So what ends up happening in a long distance relationship, or when people have this space between them, whether it's a long distance relationship or it's that, oh, we just don't talk about work, politics, or religion within my marriage. Like if there's any sort of space like where it's almost too vast, it's like there's no reality checks. It's all space for Neptune to kind of be like, oh, let's idealize this. Let's just assume things, or let's use our imagination to fill in the blanks that would otherwise be filled in by Virgoan action.
Do you think when people choose like long distance relationships, or they are, even if it's a breakup where they're not with this person, or they have a crush, like the obsession of this is the person I'm meant to be with, but they're not actually talking to them. Like, do you feel like there's like an allure to having the lack of accountability while I get to still sort of say I'm experiencing love? Like, because I think what you were saying makes me realize, like, Neptunian love is really special. Like, I don't want to just put it in like a doomed box, but when it's solely Neptunian, and if it's truly like a love relationship, that can get really murky really fast, because we're not seeing like, how is this going to work in reality? We don't have a shared reality where it's almost like the relationship is not about its reality, but an escape from real life, or a way to cope with real life versus actually connect.
Yeah. And I think that where that becomes dangerous is where the relationship ends up being that for either one person or both people in ways that are not reconcilable with each other. So it's like, you can still have a relationship where your sweetie is your escape. Maybe it is a long distance relationship, and those calls at the end of the day, processing your day, really do benefit you. Or cuddling on the couch, like becoming that like one unit together. Maybe one person doesn't need to cuddle as much and they see it as like almost labor, whereas the other person's love language, they're respecting that. It's not that they need to have necessarily the same response or the same experience, but they need to be mindful of the reality of their experience as well as the other person's experience.
Yeah, for sure.
I've never heard this term that Andy brought up.
She explains it in the next comment.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, I was just reading Space Brace.
Mm-hmm. And she said that's when couples keep things in place to ensure space, such as living separately, etc. That's super interesting. Because I know for some people, I don't want to demonize what works for some couples. I know people who live apart from their partner, whether it's for work or just they get along better, or it's someone who has a lot of energy in their chart that means solitude. And that's, if it works for you and it works for your partner, or you've come to some sort of agreement, some sort of compromise that it works and everything's out in the open, like, more power to you. What works for one,
Yeah, that's really interesting too, because I remember I like to sleep in my own bed like a couple times a week in my current relationship, because I didn't realize how physically unhealthy, or like my last relationship was, until I started sleeping in my own bed again. And there's something where it's like, I want to feel like I'm choosing to be like, to merge, and that I can still pull away. And I have a Pisces Venus. So I do like to feel like, oh, I miss them. Like, I like to go on a trip with other people and be like, oh, I miss them. That's so nice. Like, it's just, you kind of I like to manufacture those sorts of moments like that you can't really get when you're not a long distance relationship. So maybe that's my Aquarius. I don't know. But yes, I am pro Space Brace, but hadn't heard that before.
I really like that. It's interesting because, like, for me, I don't naturally lean into time apart. I have a Libra South Node and it's in the 7th. Like, codependency is what I came in wired for. But that's also not healthy. So that idea of hyper bonding just for the sake of hyper bonding, whether it's, benefiting me and the person I'm bonded to or not, that was kind of irrelevant for a long time. It was more about get a bond, any bond, tighten it, continue working it, like, just move through it. Whereas now, me and my husband, we both have 7th house South nodes. We mindfully take space and recognize in a very conscious way, like, it's okay. You have this hobby. I have this hobby. Sometimes we come together. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes parallel play. We can be in the same room, but not as bonded. I think that there are all sorts of exercises for different couples, depending on their chemistry, their composite chart, to try to work with the idea of is this space, or is this lack of space in my relationship contributing to our bond in a healthy way, or is it encouraging delusion or, a lack of sense of self.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's
That makes
important.
me, yeah, I feel like too, like sometimes would suffocating time or like too much time together also kind of still go with Neptune? Because like Neptune's all consuming. So it's like, it makes me, I wonder if that's also connected. And then I do agree with Camille, like I like time apart, but then
Mhm.
I really need the time together to be intentional. Like it's like I want quality.
Yeah.
Like I need it to be like it's not just us watching TV and not talking.
Mm-hmm.
Even TV for me, I love watching TV, but I need my whole family's like this that I have to talk. Like it needs to be a social thing. If it's something where we're just silent, I should be watching this by myself. Like,
Yep, I hear that. It's interesting what you said before. It reminded me we were going to try to interject the idea of Neptunian fog. And I think that,
yes.
go ahead, yeah, it pulls
No,
in.
I didn't. No, you go.
I was just thinking about just the fact that it can be hard to see things for what they are with Neptune. Like we're talking about an energy that is imaginative, but to the point of sometimes being delusional, sometimes being in the way.
Yeah, and I think, how do you know it's a fog versus a vision?
Wow, that's a really good question.
I'm surprised myself.
That
But
is
I'm thinking about Camille, what she said at 209 of like being able to see that this person isn't actually operating from that highest self space. And even though I can see who they could be at their core, it's not merging with who they are in reality. And it's like sometimes it's like that. I feel like we see the vision or this person is a vision or there's some sort of just connection. But then we don't realize that this is also a fog or that we're not like, I don't know if we always realize that we are wearing rose colored glasses.
I wonder if a fog is more likely to be disrupted, whereas a vision is consistent over time and over evidence. If that makes sense. So if I'm like, oh, my partner, he always lifts me up and everything about him is great. And my friends are like, yeah, but he screams at you all the time. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, okay, so then I'm in a fog because there's a lot of times where the evidence actually doesn't line up with my foggy thinking. But if I'm like, oh, this relationship is we're pushing each other a lot. And I'm like, well, even when we're in moments of being relaxed, it's because we're both recognizing and recovering from whatever that tension is that we just moved through. So the vision side of things feels more stable and consistent as it applies to different pieces of the relationship or different interactions, whereas a fog, I think, can be debunked.
Yeah, a vision, I get what you're saying. Like, as a vision is just, it's also like the rule, but that doesn't mean there's perfection. Like, and I feel like the fog, I like that. It's like you can almost filter out what we don't want to see, or it can help with like I guess, yeah, it's like the delusion versus not.
What do you think about like grief in the context of this then?
I think depends on why we're grieving. I think when we're grieving almost relationships or things that end abruptly, or when something ends with someone dying, it is really easy to immortalize that person and the relationship. And suddenly all the things that were not good kind of go away.
It reminds me of rebound relationships too.
I was gonna ask about that. But I don't know if I would think about rebound with grief. That's interesting.
It's interesting because I think of grief as aligning, like grief avoidance aligning with escapism. And I think rebound relationships align with escapism too.
But I was going to ask, can we ethically rebound? Because I think you can. Because I think it's like, are you future faking and like, jumping into this and like not being honest with this person about where you're at?
For me, it's funny that you automatically have the autonomy to know that it's a rebound, because in my past I did not know that it was like, I wasn't conscious enough to even process that I was rebounding. if that makes sense. So it's like, I think, yes, you can ethically rebound if A, you're aware that you're rebounding, and B, you share as much as you know about yourself too to the other person and make them understand and be aware of it as well. So the openness, the transparency around my goals in this relationship are really to heal, to grieve, to get a break from healing and grieving. Like if you're telling someone though, like, hey, you're basically a distraction from this relationship I cared more about, that can be a tricky truth to share.
Yeah, and I just don't think I don't think you should be, because then that's when we get into the escapism situation of you're using another person to numb the pain. That is not kind. No, I do think, because I think, especially if you're like, then you're going to get back with this person, or it's like if you haven't really like dealt with those feelings and kind of using another person or a body to cope, not good.
I think it can go both ways too, because it's like, I know I've had friends who are like, they stay single for a while and they're like, oh, I'm all healed now. Like, I don't even know what a relationship could bring to me, but I'm ready for it because I've grown so much. And then they get into a relationship and it's like the most slamming reality check of like, oh, well, there's all my triggers. It's just they haven't had that intimacy in a while to bring all that back to the surface.
It's actually, it's interesting too. I think like my most recent rebound phase, which was very ethical, but I noticed this was not on purpose, but the people I was seeing were all like actually opposite astrologically to my ex. And or they were the same, like similar signs, and it felt like, but they were just a different expression. So that was also a sign as an astrologer of like, these aren't real partners that it's like, it's kind of giving me information and it's helping me make sense of like what, like as I'm healing or letting go of something. But it was very interesting of just seeing like, oh, there's so many, like it just felt like almost without trying to, I was still projecting past onto these like rebound relationships.
Yeah. So it's almost like the grief is pushing itself to be processed.
Yes. And that's kind of what I like about, I feel like Neptunian relationships are an opportunity to heal or like let go or forgive things. And if we're willing to like actually go there. So I don't think that they're necessarily bad, but I do think often they can be healing for a season, not a lifetime. And sometimes like I just hate like in our society where like till death do us part is seen as like the only successful relationship or what we're going to. And I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from those Neptune sort of relationships.
I really like that. And I like the idea of like, till death do us part. Does that mean my physical body's death? Does that mean my soul's death? And if our souls are forever, then technically like that's a long time that you're with that person. Or is it till this version of myself dies? Whether that means I've grown, whether that means you've grown and our bond is separate. We've both grown in different ways. It reminds me of when Stephen talks about his relationship with his ex-wife Jody and the fact that they wrote relationship books together. But he's like the elephant in the room at the beginning of Teaching Synastry. Like, yeah, I am divorced from the person I literally wrote the books with. But it's like when he said that he was with her though, and he found her and he wanted to marry her, it was because he saw her as a person who was good for the person that he was growing into.
Yes.
But then he grew into that person and he kept growing. And so it no longer matched up.
And you can both grow, but grow in different directions or have different, like there's evolution here. And, or, where my fog or veil might lift and it's different. I totally agree with that. I feel like sometimes like I view divorce as a part of like that letting go, or like there is some forgiveness with that.
Yeah.
Like,
go ahead.
No, you're good. I just said surrendering.
Surrendering. I just don't think that divorce needs to be ever seen as a failure. In some ways, it's almost like to not get divorced when it's necessary is the failure.
Yes, that's when we can see more shadow Neptune of like you feel like you're going mad or you feel numb and just like you're drifting. We see people who just zombie roommates and acting like everything's fine.
And how many of those people then turn to literal things in order to continue escaping, like someone
Working late.
working late, starting drinking when you're at home, like things like that that like help you to.
Affairs, hidden relationships. Yeah, like
Yeah.
more 12th house type numbing. Yes, absolutely.
It's so good. And it's like, so what would the solution to that be? Okay, well, if we're talking about 12th house, numbing, Neptune, illusion, escapism, the solution lies in Virgo. And Virgo sometimes is about like hard truths, harsh realities, and being actually able to look at practically what are we dealing with here. Let's go
No,
ahead.
you keep going. I want you to finish
It's
your
not thinking with our our imaginations and actually saying like, well, on a day-to-day basis, what are we bringing to the table together? What does this relationship look like? And how can we, sixth house, work towards this shared common goal? Or is it better for us to work separately?
Yeah, and I love what you were saying with like the Virgo because it's being honest about and it's focusing on I want to improve. Like I want the best for me and I want the best for my partner.
Mm-hmm.
Even if that's and like what's the best for us might not be together, but being able to just that doesn't mean you're going to break up, but like being able to have that conversation and not feel the need to avoid it, I think just really gives us like a deeper picture of just like okay, so what rituals, because I feel like Neptunian rituals would be helpful too, where you don't fall into that numbness because it's like like we need to have dinner without our phones, like great, let's like, but that's a ritual that is sixth house that would still help us like maintain, like make it more sustainable to have like magic throughout our relationship. But it also just makes me feel like so many of the shadow Neptunian relationships fall into more of that Virgo shadow of I'm not good enough, or this is all I deserve, or or if this isn't working, I'm not doing enough, I'm not good enough. And so focusing on the importance of self love when you're going in, like unconditional self love when you're in a relationship.
And that is so Virgo because to have self-love, it's a daily practice. Whether your self-love, an act of self-love, such as just hygiene, that can be an act of self-love. I know that that's very boring and very,
but it is.
Yeah. And
cleaning, like, yeah, I rephrased cleaning for myself to be like, I am worthy of a clean home, because when you don't view it as a chore, it's like, it's actually much more motivating.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting to think about like reconciling the Pisces Virgo opposition in terms of love languages. Like you want to bring this mystical, powerful, spiritual attraction and bond from Neptune and find a way to balance it with Virgo. And it's like, well, what are the practical ways? What are the Virgoan ways that I can show you how much I love you? Okay, what is your love language? And getting curious about that and actually honoring those kind of earthly, very real expressions of what your partner, what taps into who, their love, their soul.
I love that.
Feeling cared about. Yeah. One of the things I wanted to make sure we mentioned, and we've said the word a couple times, but I haven't dove right into it, is that higher path of Neptune love where we're talking about compassion and compassion for the other person. So I went to this like trauma conference in 2023. It was amazing. I was doing some deep shadow work, and Gabor Mate was one of the people that was online, was one of the people that was speaking. And he talked about the 5 levels of compassion. And a quote that I had pulled from that: if you put anything ahead of truth, you are going to create suffering for you and for other people. And he said that the word compassion even comes, the root of, so calm means together, and passion technically is rooted in the meaning suffer. So it's like suffering together, to suffer with. So it becomes almost like seeing that truth, honoring that truth, allowing the suffrage that can come with truth to come out, and really standing there, being compassionate, being in the moment with that person. So he starts with saying, like, the first of the 5 layers is just regular compassion, ordinary compassion, where we're like, someone is suffering and that makes me sad. Like, I don't want to see them suffer. You take it to the next level and we're talking about compassion of understanding, where we're saying, why are you suffering? It's not enough to just feel bad for that person, but we want to understand what happens. And it's interesting to think about it as like, ordinary compassion is very like Cancerian. It's very like, I see what you're feeling. I feel that too. Like, ooh, we're in this like Cancer 4th house lunar zone. Taking it to the compassion of understanding is almost like going to the next level, going to that water, that Scorpio water. We're not just feeling it, but we're analyzing it. We want to know the why. And then the next, you can interrupt at any time because I still got 3 layers to go. No, I just wanted to let you know if you're like, ooh, I have a thought on that.
Okay.
I don't want you to lose your train of thought too. And then the compassion of recognition is that 3rd step. And this feels to me like we're really in that Scorpionic house now. Yeah. I don't see myself as very different from you. I understand what you're going through deep within myself. The 4th level after that compassion of recognition is the compassion of truth. And this is where we start to branch over into Pisces, that final water sign, the 12th house right there with Neptune. I'm not trying to protect you from your pain anymore. You need the truth and the full truth, and that's what's going to liberate you. So it might be painful, and if I'm trying to protect you, I might not say certain things or ask certain questions, but not asking and not saying those things actually isn't compassionate, because the truth is necessary. So that's where we're like pulling the deep Scorpionic 8th house work with the kind of philosophical understanding of the 12th house. Like, that truth is so necessary. And the final step is the compassion of possibility. So we're not mistaking someone for their current demeanor or their current behavior or how they're showing up in that moment. We're seeing them for the full possibility of who they could be, how that could be, because at any moment, that level of themselves could spontaneously manifest. And it's kind of like keeping that hope out that that growth trajectory and growth potential is right there. It's like kind of like Neptune we talk about. It's like, is it really there? We can almost touch it, but we really can't. We can't quite see it. Like, it's everywhere.
And I think it's so hard sometimes for us. Like, I like what you're talking about. It's like you can handle this, or like to sort of be a witness to, or even not even a witness, but a support to someone healing their pain without being self-sacrificial or a crutch, or feeling or taking on the responsibility, like being the savior of like, oh, I can fix this for you. It's like, I think sometimes because of that, it's like there's deep sensitivity that comes with it, and where you're very like, if you're empathic, you can feel it, and sometimes we want to heal it versus thinking about, can this person do it for themselves?
Yeah. And it can feel like, it's funny because like it brings back in the Virgo side of things. Like, you're being kind of analytical. You're kind of processing with that person / for that person, deciding to what level you can actually assist them, and to what level do they actually need to do this work for themselves.
And I was a lifeguard, and this makes me think about when we have an active victim in deep water, but they train us to, it is an instinctual survival response when someone's actively drowning and you come to rescue them, for them to climb on whatever they can. So oftentimes they unintentionally push you down and try to drown you. And so that's what it's like. So we are rarely told to like approach someone from the front. That's why we have the rescue tube. It's not, we can swim. It's not to keep us afloat, but it's to like kind of use it as this like we're sometimes fighting with the person that we're trying to rescue. And like sometimes, and it's like, if they're trying to bring you down, it's like you pinch, you do what they literally say, do whatever you have to do to get free, and maybe you shove them away and you pull back and you try again. But they say we approach from the back, we grab them from behind, so it's like it's harder for them, and you keep saying, I'm here, like calm down, you're good. But it's instinctual to kind of attack once you have something, and it's like, it's not even like you're realizing it. So sometimes I think there's a lot of like unintentional harm that happens. And I just think that's really interesting to me. I just got really excited where it is also okay if the person's trying, like, doesn't recognize that you're trying to help. Like sometimes that's when we need to release or find a different way to support.
Yeah. Because part of that too is like self-love. Like the lifeguard has self-love. They don't want to drown. Like, so
right.
keeping
and it's interesting because that's physical life or death. It's like, I'm instinctually also don't want to drown. So me pinching you or like pushing you away from me isn't hard as when we're looking at love of it feels like I'm turning my back on this person. Or if I see, like what Camille was saying earlier, if I see their potential of what they could be, or if I see their pain, like I can see where these wounds are coming from and I want to help, it's like not so easy to like push away or to think about, wait, I'm also getting hurt right now.
Yeah. And it's interesting to think about how that person who's drowning, I'm sure they're not that rational in the moment to be processing, but they might be like, why are you pushing me away? Why are you like, don't you care about me? Don't you want to save me? And maybe if that lifeguard becomes more emotional or they particularly, they know the victim, something like that, and they're making more emotionally charged decisions. Oh, well, they are climbing down, but I really don't want my friend to drown. So it's almost like diluted thinking around the fact that they don't realize they're even being self-sacrificing by not following the idea of, hey, this is a balancing act. I need boundaries. I can't just merge with you. We'll both drown.
Right. No, I agree.
It's interesting too, because we talk about like the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and how these are deeply psychological, kind of like what we're discussing is deeply psychological. But the fact that Pluto and Uranus get this rep for kind of being like these slamming, like hellish planets to deal with, and they are, but they're much more upfront about it. They're very in your face. And Neptune is kind of like, it can be very hard to pin down because the way it presents itself is almost like you might feel like you're going crazy a little bit because there's way less evidence of something going on. However, you're very much deeply impacted by it. It might be something that's even not manifesting here on the earth plane. It's some level of discomfort, dissolution, or just dissolving nature, or feeling like you're in a fog that no one else is in.
Yeah. No, I like that because it's confused. It's vague. I feel like sometimes when we're thinking about like a Neptunian love that is just really, really like primarily Neptune, I don't know if we really know we're in it until we're in it. It's like Saturnian love, I'm feeling, or like even your like Uranian love, like you're breaking out of a mold. So it feels more like you're aware that it's happening because I'm doing something that's out of the mold or like that's different. And then with Saturnian love, it's like you are committing, you're making something that is concrete. And it's like because of that fogginess of Neptune, we don't always realize, like it's not like you were like, yes, this is, here I am, I'm choosing to walk into this fog.
You know what's interesting is to think about this in terms of like a newborn baby and the fact that like they are a very Neptunian being. Like they feel completely unseparate from mother. Even the fact that when newborns are born, their ideal vision range is like a foot away. Everything else is blurry, or could we say foggy? Like all they want is, you know, the vision of I'm in my caregiver's arms and I look up and that's exactly the range for my eyesight. It's almost like Neptune is informing that baby's ability to experience the world by being like, hey, you need to experience the world as a Neptunian creature, hyper bonded for survival.
Sylvia Plath has a poem about when she had a newborn but she talks about how she felt like she was a cloud being effaced by the wind because of her, because like her whole life was now focused on this being, but it was seen as a negative interpretation of motherhood, but it was like all consuming and like losing herself. But it was like this disillusionment. And it's like, I think we haven't really hit on the disillusionment that can come when we are like putting something like so high up. And then of course, I'm not saying disappointment's inevitable, but it's like this person is a human and
Mhm.
this isn't a fairy tale. There is going to be reality. Um, and if we're disillusioned, does that mean that the relationship's over? Like, does disillusionment happen in any long-term relationship? Like, I
Mhm.
know we talk about the honeymoon phase. So, like, with that, when that ends, does that count?
I think so. Like I'm a deluded thinker. Let's just put that out there. And when I met Sam and we had all these like trauma synchronicities and like we liked the same song, like and like we would say things that it was like I said that one time before. Like there were just all these weird things that would line up and it felt so magical, but it
Mhm.
made me project that magic onto Sam and I was like he is magical. I've told you this before that me and my friends called him a demigod because we were like, ah, like he's everything. And then as our relationship continues, it almost became like he had to live up to the standard of being this. I projected it all onto him. You do everything perfectly. You have all the right answers. Da, 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 da. And when he unfortunately shows up as a human being, and I'm like, excuse me, you need to be accountable to these standards that no human can reach. But for some reason, I feel I'm deluded enough to think that I should tell you that you need to live up to that.
Yeah, that's like the quote where to be on a pedestal is like a pedestal is a prison.
Yeah, that very much was his prison.
You can't do anything but like come down. Do you want to? I'm laughing first at Camille saying like we're preaching because I feel like you saying you're deluded. Deluded. I'm like I think that we both had a lot of Neptunian experiences.
Yeah.
So I'm like we're not talking from an ivory tower. We're talking very much from lived experiences. But yeah, let's jump to Andy's question.
Yeah, this is a deep one. How do people with Venus Neptune aspects love well? Well, still trying to figure it out now.
It's a balance because I feel like it's not, I don't think it's fair to say, like, so Venus, Neptune, want to have an idealistic love. They want the romance and like the feeling, like what I say, like a fairy tale, a movie, like a rom-com situation. But it's like, I don't think it's worth saying, like, you need to not be like, you can't have that kind of love. Or it's like maintaining that while also understanding, like, disillusionment isn't the enemy. Like this person is a human and we can still make like how can we maintain like magic on like an everyday basis or a way that's sustainable.
I think I like that a lot. And I think too that where Venus can have this insatiable drive for equilibrium and serenity and balance, and Neptune can be a little diluted in its thinking, I think the common thread between them is surrendering too much. So being hyper aware of
Yes.
what am I actually sacrificing for this partnership? The peace between me and this other person? Am I avoiding conflicts because I just want everything to be magical again? Am I lying to myself that things are magical because all these little things under the surface, in Ayurveda we call it samskara, where it's like everything leaves an impact, and if you don't kind of remedy anything that needs to be remedied, it's going to ripple through and actually impact things. So I think what can happen is people who have Venus Neptune strongly aspected or strongly in their charts can be a little delusional, and then all of a sudden recognize, oh my God, I just completely self-abandoned, where I surrendered too much. It could also have to do with house sign. I surrendered too much money. I surrendered too much of my ego. I surrendered too much of my own voice, whatever it is, wherever that house placement is. Really check in on yourself. Is there still a strong presence of that within my personality, within my relationship? Are we actually equals in these different ways? I think that can be kind of a sign that something should possibly be examined for readjustment. If you are being mindful of what you are giving up in order to maintain peace, harmony, connection, and all of that, I think that is how we want to be mindful, grounded, keeping in reality, keeping some level of like earthbound reality in order for people with strong Venus, Neptune to love well.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking about like pulling in fantastical experiences. Is
Mm.
fantastical a word? Fantastic experiences into the relationship that aren't in the form of this human. Like
Mm.
just like you could role playing games together, or it's just like experiencing these surreal moments. Like I don't know, a sunset would be cathartic. It's like you need catharsis for sure. You need to be able to release with this person. To I feel like you need there needs to be like mutual sensitivity.
Mm.
Like you like I really like what you said of just like being able to guard against sacrificing too much.
Mm-hmm. I think it can be really helpful too to, even if it's a minor aspect or no aspect, figure out how your Venus and your Neptune are connected in your chart. Some people it's really obvious. Maybe they have a conjunction, maybe they have an opposition. Some people it's like, I have 135 degrees. Like, oh, I've never looked at, those type
Yeah.
of like, and then you look into like, well, what does that energy feel like? What does a square and a half feel like? And really examining your own experiences in life for like, oh, how did that show up for me, both in a positive way, but also in a negative way in the past? And how can I manifest more towards those positive or higher type expressions of that synthesis?
Yeah. I think it's definitely like really helpful to be aware of like what you want in a person. I just feel like with Neptune, the higher expression is spiritual sensitivity or like just transcendence, but you can if you're meeting someone who kind of matches the lower expression of Neptune, it's just like you need someone with as much depth as you have. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you have a well of that, you cannot be with someone who has a puddle. Like
Mm-hmm.
you gotta, and I just think being very clear on what you're looking for is really helpful. And I also feel like having that unconditional love for yourself, which I was saying, like I think in Mastery of Love, when they talk about like the fridge, if you have an empty fridge and someone shows up with a pizza at your front door, it's like you can have this pizza if you've just agreed to this, and this, and give me this. You're gonna be like, yes. But if your fridge is like a magical fridge that's fully stocked,
Mm-hmm.
then you'd be like, shut the door in their face, where you're not so like desperate.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. The desperation side of things.
Or like, I mean, a pizza when you have nothing in your fridge is like amazing, but then, you don't even care if it's your favorite. But if you have everything, you're like, that's actually not what I want. I think it's easier to kind of see reality. I've heard that too with like people who, they take their friends on dates or they like take themselves on dates.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot harder to like be confused by if you're satisfied in this relationship, if you still maintain that relationship with yourself outside of it.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's like can you surrender to a relationship with yourself too?
Mm-hmm. I really like the pizza analogy because part of it brings me back to that like first thing we were talking about with like, am I in love with this person or am I in love with this state of feeling? And it's like if you're starving for a specific feeling, like feeling nourished, the pizza, no matter what, you're like, oh, it's not that I actually like this pizza. It's that I've missed this feeling. I'm treasuring the feeling of actually having food in my stomach. But once that's a feeling that is more accessible to you, your standards start to raise up.
I'm gonna pivot for a second, but we haven't talked about it. But the desire, sometimes people like we talked about like you like the idea of a person, but
Mm-hmm.
what about yes, Camila, you can throw something out. But it's like what some people are like, oh, I'm attracted to this person who's married with a family, or like there's no ability for us to connect, or like people who are like, oh, this person who's in prison, I'm falling in love with them, and now I'm like, it's just when there are people who really are connected to someone who is unavailable.
Mm-hmm.
It's like long distance relationship sort of connects, but it's still different. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like why would I want, like, what am I getting fulfilled if I'm drawn to people who are unattainable or like unavailable? Because it feels self-defeating.
Yeah. And it brings up the whole idea of like fantasy bonding or like, oh, like I'm only in love with Justin Bieber. I can't ever love anyone else. It's like, well,
Parasocial, yes, it's so weird. I mean, I love Justin Bieber, but I'm just like the whole they can do no wrong. I'm gonna just this is my love, and then death threats towards whoever they're dating is weird.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, because that's not actually a relationship that you're living. It's not an actual experience. Both people aren't even partaking in it. It's completely fanatical. And then it's like, okay, well, what is this actually solving for you? And what projections are you putting onto this that actually are things within yourself that you need to own? And it probably is that idea of self-abandonment. Like if I'm only going to love someone who is completely emotionally, and it's impossible for me to have a relationship with this married person who's not even interested in me, or this celebrity who's not even interested in me. What is it within myself that I am so disgusted by, divorced from, unable to acknowledge, that I think the only way for me to safely feel into bonding with another person is to make sure that they'll never see that part of me either?
Ooh, again, protection. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Okay, my Capricorn Neptune and Leo Venus.
Okay, we got a quincunx, like a whole sign.
Yeah, whole
Do you
sign.
want to go into what that might say?
Well, we talk about quincunxes and semi-sextiles in kind of the same tune of like there's an adjustment that is needed, that we feel something that's a little bit, oh, that's not quite right. Kind of like the 150 degrees. It's not in opposition and it kind of wants to be, but it also kind of wants to be a trine, but it's neither, and it's stuck in the middle of them. Same as a semi-sextile. They're kind of close, but it's like making this like distorted kind of noise. So what can happen is they don't quite understand each other. They don't understand what the other one's wanting, but they also don't understand the method that the other one is going to try to actually get that thing.
Yeah. So there's like there's shared creativity, but also like an adjustment, potential restlessness between them, because they do have different ways of getting what they want and different needs in general. I am, since Neptune stays in like a sign for quite a while, I'm interested, like Neptune's house, really like the house of the Neptune and Venus also really comes into play. But I'm curious.
Yeah, which houses she has this in. It's interesting too, because like we talk about Leo being, it can be potentially performative and dramatic, but really what it's getting down to is the fact that it wants to vulnerably portray itself. It's a very sensitive sign. It wants to show its true self, its deep true self, to the right audience, and doing that and kind of testing out, well, is this my audience? It's a huge, it's almost self-sacrificial, because it's like, well, what if they hate me? Well, what if this? It's like you've got to be a little bit discerning with who you're choosing to be the audience for that Venus.
Yeah. And it can be, I think too, it's like there's a desire to be loved loudly, right? Like you want to be with someone who is as your hype man, is proud of you. It's like is excited with you living. Neptune in the 11th house too, with that Leo Venus. When I'm thinking about that, it's like if we're thinking about it within the context of relationships, just like there is this desire, I think, to imagine a future or shared vision with this person, and like that can feel like being loved loudly. But there's that sheer creativity / adjustment is making sure we're not getting ungrounded and like attached to this future or shared vision before we actually have like know who this person is. And like, are we getting stuck on the potential future or the reality of what this person is like actively able to provide right now?
Oh, Camille's a Pisces rising. So this episode,
and that adds another layer. Like Neptune's extremely important to her chart.
Yeah, so it's okay. Oh, the pain. Okay. So part of this too, it's interesting because I was literally just looking at, I have a Leo sun and it makes an aspect to my Capricorn Neptune. So I was like, oh, that's an interesting dynamic. Of mine's a delusional angle though, whereas yours is more of a, it's more grounded in reality, hopefully, Camille. However, however, you have the Pisces rising, so all bets are off there. No, just kidding. But I was thinking too about that Neptune being so focused on like the greater good, or that long-term vibe of the 11th house, which again is opposite of what Leo wants. So that Neptune is super powerful because it's your chart ruler, or at least your modern chart ruler. Plus, it has this kind of edginess that it's kind of challenging that Leo from within the 11th house. So that little Venus is kind of like but what about me? Like over in the corner a little bit, that can be, do I need therapy?
No.
No, you're okay.
Maybe you do. I don't know.
Well, not just based on your chart, but
I also want to just say too, like I feel like with Pisces risings or Neptune on the ascendant, and like whether you are the projector or projected upon does happen. And I do think like ideally as we get older, we have more discernment when we're in Neptunian experiences, especially as they're starting to get ungrounded. But I don't know. I mean, at least for me, and I'd like to hear what other people think, but just I don't know if I would be in the relationship I'm in now or be approaching relationships the way I do now, or more like cognizant of when I'm going into the shadow of Neptune or Pisces with my Pisces Venus, if I hadn't experienced some like shadow Neptunian relationships.
yeah.
Like there is something to be said about like going through that experience or experiencing that grief.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Like Neptune needs to learn how sacred the experiences are, but also being present within those experiences in order to mature, in order to grow into a higher expression, a higher archetype of it. So if that presence is more of a intellectualizing, that's great. But sometimes that presence, it needs experiences. It needs to experience what it is to self-abandon or to not be able to hold a boundary or to be self-sacrificial rather than having an experience of mutual shared love.
Yeah, like I was telling you, I was like, I love everyday magic in relationships in small doses. And, and there's a way to do that without trying to find like toxic ways of bringing that in.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, like those intense, like it's just magic can be good or bad, but it's like, or dark or light. And it's just if you want to just feel like life is magical, you can get that at the high and low expression.
Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure. It's interesting too to think about the intensity versus intimacy kind of confusion that people can have. I am one of those people. I'm talking about myself. When I used to say, oh, I'm addicted to the early stages of relationships. And it was really that intensity that comes with the early and the risk and the way it forces you to be grounded. It forces you to be present because it feels so high risk. And then as you get comfortable with a person, at least for me, I have the tendency to be like, okay, well, this isn't keeping my attention as much anymore. I must not like this person because that spark is gone. And it's like, well, no, it's just the intensity is trying to evolve into something more sustainable, but you're not, Jenna, you're not ready for that yet. So
and I feel like it's like we can still practice Neptune in our relationships. Like I'm thinking about meditation practice, but like practicing the things that because I feel like Neptune and that like just the intensity or falling in love, it's like you're not really trying there. I mean, that's why it's so easy to get into like the shadow of Neptune is like we're not actively, like it's more passive, but it's like we can still harness the high side, but it will just require more like intention. Which is like still it's a different kind of it's still Neptune, but it's just with a little dose of Saturn structure.
Yeah. It's interesting too to think of like we talk about the signs that correct for the overage of the ones that come before them or after them. And it's like Saturn really does help correct for an abundance of Neptune because Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. And right before Pisces, we have Aquarius, and Saturn is the traditional rule of Aquarius and Capricorn. So a lot of people have Neptune, at least nowadays, people of our age have Neptune in these generational signs that are traditionally ruled by Saturn. So it's almost like giving us a little extra nudge in that, like, don't forget about the dose of reality that we need.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Whew. That was a big talk.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I could still go on, but I feel like this is good. This is like a great place to stop. Thanks for everyone joining us. Do we want to talk about what we're going to explore next week?
Yeah.
So we're going to be looking at Venus and Mars, specifically from like a cultural standpoint of like how Venus is dominating Mars in our society today, and like what the implications are and like exploring more about that.
Mm.
I'm very excited about this.
It'll be a juicy topic for sure. Oh, thanks, Jill. Wish this was a 2-hour episode. If you watch us talk slower, like put it on 50% speed.
Don't
No,
do that.
all right, everyone. Until next week.
Thanks. See y'all.
Bye.
Bye.